Good morning, church. Welcome to another devotional. Today I wanted to read from Genesis chapter 9, verses 14 to 16. This is God speaking to Noah after the flood has concluded and he's back on solid and dry ground. God says, "When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow, the rainbow, is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth." You know, we've been told that there are many flood stories in ancient literature. We've got stories of Gilgamesh and Noah and other cultures where this idea of a universal flood occurring recounted in their oral traditions. And here we read such a story, one that seems to draw many parallels to those other stories. In the ancient world, there were always two parties in a covenant. And usually it was not equal parties that were not of equal strength or of equal financial stability. You would often have a weaker party and you would often have a stronger party. And the stronger party was the one who dictated the terms of the covenant. The one who needed the covenant, a sort of contract even, and the one who accepted the covenant. The one who set the terms and the ones who obeyed the terms. And as strange as it might seem, a covenant would often come from the weaker party. In a lot of cases, the weaker party would say, "I understand I am defeated. I understand that I am financially unstable. I understand that I am at risk of death through either starvation or invasion or some other crisis." So they would come to the stronger party, to a king, to a nation that has conquered them, to a rich man from a poor man. And they would say, "I want to form a covenant with you. If I give you these things, will you give me something in return?" And it was the stronger party's prerogative to say yes or no, to impose greater restrictions, to say, you haven't gone far enough. I want more restrictions. I want more benefits. And if you don't follow your end of the bargain, then my end is off. I will refuse to obey my end of the bargain. At the end of the covenant, there would also be a sign. There would also be something that would signify that this covenant was in fact valid, a receipt of sorts, a receipt for the transaction, similar to the one that you get at a Costco store, for example, or a title to a car, or a wedding ring that you get during the ceremony, that says there's a covenant between two people, there's an agreement. However, one of the things that we often overlook is that it was often the weaker party who was responsible for keeping the receipt. They had to say, "This is the receipt of our covenant." So when the stronger party would come back and it would say, "I want to take you away to a different country," or "I want to take some of your property in exchange for the debt that you owe," and they would bring out this receipt and they would say, "Look, we have an agreement, we have a covenant." And that was when the stronger party would say, "Okay, I forgot about the covenant that we had, but thank you for the reminder. But I will be back. I will be back later. And maybe my memory won't be as good again. So keep this receipt to make sure that I don't take advantage of my stronger position." And here we have a covenant. God promises and makes a covenant with Noah. But the interesting thing about the story is it seems to be upside down. God is clearly the stronger party. Noah is clearly the weaker. But God says an interesting thing. He says, "I will keep the receipt of the covenant." That receipt will be the bow in the sky, the rainbow that's in the sky. So that when it comes out, I will remember the covenant. You don't need to do anything, Noah. Even if you forget, even if generations pass and you forget about the covenant that we made here today, I will remember. And I will keep my end of the bargain. I will put it as a sign in the clouds. In other stories like Gilgamesh, there's also a flood narrative, one where the whole world is flooded. But in that story, the man has to outsmart the gods. He has to maneuver himself. He has to position himself. He has to do things to get the advantage, to make it out of this encounter between the gods and mortals alive and healthy. And that's not what happens here. Here, God steps in and he says, no, you don't have to do anything. I will do my part. Just like the gospel narrative, the story is upside down. The weaker party is being given all of the good things and is not put under any restrictions. Yet God, the stronger party, is the one that says, I will obey all the restrictions. And here, the interesting thing is that God says that despite the inclinations, despite your inclinations to do evil in the world, I will still remember the covenant. If you look back just a few verses where God looks upon the earth, he says the same thing almost exactly. He says the inclinations of people are evil. Every desire of their heart is for evil. And that is why I'm going to destroy it. But after creating this covenant, he says, despite the fact that the inclinations of all of humanity are evil, I will keep my end of the bargain. That is the God that we have. That is the God that says, I will keep the covenant. There are going to be two people. There's going to be two individuals who are part of this promise. And you and I, we are the weaker party. We're the ones who come before God and we say, God, I am not worthy. I need your help in defeating sin. I need your help in standing against my own desires. And God says, I understand that. And I will not meet you halfway. I will meet you all of the way. And I will give you something far more valuable than you could ever imagine. As we go this week, I want you to remember that you are part of a covenant with God, one where you are promised eternal life. And it doesn't require anything of you except for faith. Faith and belief in God, that He is your King, that He is the Lord of all the earth, and that despite Him having your life in His hands, He still loves you and He still cares for you. God bless and take care.